Hi, my name is Jordan Ross, and I'm a program manager on the Azure Security Customer Experience Engineering team, where I work on Azure Sentinel. Today, I'm going to talk about how Azure Sentinel and Azure Security Center can work together. I'll do this by showing you how you can go from a Sentinel investigation to identify a risky resource and improve its security posture in Azure Security Center. Now let's go to the Lightboard to see how things map out. A lot of customers ask, how is Azure Sentinel different from Azure Security Center? And if I have Azure Sentinel, does it replace Security Center? So the answer is no. And it's because Azure Sentinel is a cloud-native SIEM, which aggregates logs from a multitude of different data sources. And so from those different logs, it determines from those events what kind of malicious activity has occurred. It analyzes that data and allows you to investigate as well as take action upon it. And so these data sources that Sentinel collects can be internal, and that could include Azure Security Center as one of those data sources. It can be third-party, and it can even be custom. Custom would be anywhere where we don't have a built-in connector already enabled. For the case of Azure Security Center, when those logs are connected to Sentinel, what's really flowing into Sentinel are the alerts that come from Azure Security Center's detections, and that would be on IaaS and PaaS resources. So while Azure Security Center sends its alerts and that log information into Sentinel, and that can be correlated with other contextual information, Security Center does more than that. It does more than just allow the investigation of alerts. From Security Center, you have two main areas. One of them is Cloud Workload Protection Platform. This would be areas where you actually reduce the attack surface and try to make sure that your resources aren't vulnerable where they are open. Part of that is getting detections off of it. And so alerts will come out of Azure Security Center, and that's what flows into Sentinel. But in addition to that, there is Cloud Security Posture Management. This is where we actually receive recommendations on what it means to be secure. What kind of vulnerabilities exist in the resources being monitored by Azure Security Center. So I want to focus on that area. Because the alerts are what natively go into Sentinel, we want to see how we can still pay attention to cloud security posture management and how we can use Secure Score to prioritize those recommendations. So let's look at an investigation that could occur. And that comes from an incident recognized within Sentinel. So let's say an incident surfaces in Sentinel that is focused on an anomalous sign-in or login. So this would come into Sentinel as an incident, but Sentinel would give you more than just that alert that would come from the data sources that it's collecting information for. It would also tell you the context of it. Was there a user that was impacted or relevant to this activity? It would also tell you, was there a virtual machine that was part of this attack as well? This would show up in Sentinel's investigation experience. We could expand this to see other related alerts that were recognized off of the virtual machine, such as a malicious URL that was accessed, or a PowerShell command line that was recognized and used that is suspected to be malicious. We could gather that contextual information to include the image file or the actual command that was executed, as well as the URL. But once we have this information, once we've performed our investigation, we want to make sure that we're reducing the likelihood that this would occur again. And so, yes, we could take some remediation activities or respond to this attack by using a logic app. But in addition to that, we can use Azure Security Center on the resource that we're already aware of right here. So going into Azure Security Center, we can look up this virtual machine, and we can see the recommendations related to it, which could be just-in-time VM access. It could be disk encryption hasn't been enabled. And it could include looking at any misconfigurations that need remediation. So looking at the actual security config. Security Center will use SecureScore to actually prioritize this list for you. So it won't only tell you that all of these are high severity and make up the vulnerabilities that could compromise that virtual machine, but it will tell you the order of which you should start to work on these. And so what I'll do now is I'll shift over into a demo. I'll show you what that looks like, and we'll be able to actually see how we can pivot between these two products. Right now, I'm in Azure Sentinel. To get to this screen, I opened up Sentinel on a workspace that I have Sentinel enabled on, and I navigated over to the Open Incidents. Opening up the incident for an anomalous login, I can see related alerts, the entities relevant to this alert, and I can see that there's a VM that's been detected here. I've understood that the attack that occurred was composed of these three alerts, but now, moving past the investigation, I want to make sure that I'm securing this resource. Because I have Azure Security Center enabled, I can go over to Security Center and navigate over to Compute and Apps. For Security Center, you can review recommendations for your whole subscription, or you can go over and look at the exact resources that recommendations are relevant to. I can go to VMs and servers and identify any one of these virtual machines. Let's say that the VM that was involved in the attack that was surfaced is this one right here, this victim VM. Opening this up, I can see a list of all of the recommendations listed under it. I can see them by severity, but I can actually start to work on why this virtual machine was vulnerable, why it was exposed to this sort of attack, and what I need to work on first to make sure that attack doesn't happen again.
Today, I talked to you about how the two products can work together. But moving forward, what I'd like to see is for you to connect Azure Security Center into Azure Sentinel, and from a Sentinel investigation to identify resources that you can remediate using Azure Security Center to prevent an attack in the future. For more information, join our security community by following the link below.